Good afternoon, team. It's Miss Anya. Today we are going to talk about solar power. Mostly our project we're going to be talking about is solar oven. So we're going to make one together and eat some food out of the solar oven, which will be really fun. We'll also talk about tomorrow is Earth Day. So we're going to do a little chat about how we can celebrate. We're going to go over some vocabulary words. I have a really fun trivia today. That being said, why don't you think about, can you think where the sunniest place on Earth might be, or the least sunny, and which one would you prefer to live? So would you prefer to live in a really sunny place, or are you kind of like, I like it when it's a little cloudy out? So go ahead and start thinking about that. You can comment below if you want. You can put your first and your last name. I've seen that some of you have started doing that. And I'm so happy because I love that you are watching our videos and you're learning with us still, even from home and afar. All right, let's talk about Earth Day. So Earth Day is tomorrow, April 22nd. It's the 50th anniversary of Earth Day, so it started in 1970. And according to the Environmental Protection Agency, thanks to this creation of this special day and everybody celebrating it, it's led to the passage of the Clean Air, Clean Water, and Endangered Species Act. So it kind of brought some light upon treating our Earth with a little bit more respect and that kind of stuff. So some ways that we can celebrate are we can plant some seeds. So that is the best way to celebrate Earth. When I think of Earth, I think of our trees and dirt and plants and green, and it's starting to get green now, which is great. So make things green, make things green at home. You can plant a seed, plant a flower. Just kind of like it says down here at the bottom, get outside. So go and enjoy. If you can't plant a seed, go outside and enjoy the trees and the plants. So make a promise journal, or this would be a really fun one to do with your family. You can fill a journal with resolutions of how you can help the earth. So recycling obviously is a big one. Turning your lights off is just something simple you can start doing, that kind of stuff. So make those positive promises about how you and your family can start helping the earth. You can decorate it with photographs, and there's some really wonderful poems I recommend you reading, and that kind of stuff. And then recycle. That's just an obvious one. If you want to go as far, if you're kind of bored at home, you can make special recycling containers. So like one could be for cardboard, one can be for aluminum cans, one can be for glass, and that would be, you can decorate cardboard boxes and kind of make it a fun thing at home, so you're all excited to recycle too in these fun new boxes. So yes, celebrate Earth Day. It's such a fun day. Right, so I asked you a little bit earlier where you think the sunniest place in the whole world is. And it kind of makes me think, so I know that there's this equator line, which is right around the middle of the earth, and that it's really warm closest to the equator, and the further you get away from the equator, the colder it gets. So I'm thinking that the sunniest place might be somewhere near the equator. Like, just go ahead and take a minute, maybe talk to your sibling if they're next to you. You can comment your guess if you want to. That would be really fun. Ask your parents. So just go ahead and take a moment to think about that. Well, maybe you didn't know, but the sunniest place in the whole world is actually here in the United States. And go ahead and give a shout out at home if you've ever been to the state of Arizona. And if you have, then you understand that it's desert and sunny in that area all the time. But so a place in Arizona called Yuma, Arizona, Y-U-M-A, they get over 4,000 hours of sun a year. So if you like do the math, we'll say there's like 12 sunny hours in a day because the other 12 are dark and no sleep. And so do the math. So they have about 330 days of sun, give or take. That was an estimate. Something really fun is you can do the math at home and comment below. But so that's a lot of sun. That means that there's only 30 days of the year where the sun is not shining, which here we don't have that luxury. Sometimes it does get quite cloudy, and when the sun is out, it's great. So, and then where do you think is the least sunny? Like I said, you might guess here in Jackson, Wyoming, because sometimes it's not very sunny for days on end. But if you guess that, maybe somewhere like Wyoming, or I know that it's really cloudy and rainy a lot in places like the Pacific Northwest, like Washington and Oregon. That might be a good guess. So the least sunny place on Earth is the South Pole. The sun only shines there 182 days, so that's about half of the year where there's no sun shining, which is so sad. And if you had to decide, I mean, some people don't like the sun. So if you have to decide, where would you rather live? Like, I know I have a few friends that do live up in Washington State, and they love that it's kind of gloomy and cloudy. That's their kind of weather of choice, which I do appreciate those days sometimes. But if you had to live in either Yuma, Arizona, the most sunny place on Earth, or the South Pole, the least sunny place on Earth, where would you rather live? And if you have an answer to that question where you think you would want to live, you can comment it below. Now we're going to get into our mindfulness moment and get ready for project time and learning, because I have some fun vocabulary activities and our project's really fun today. So to get started, when I think of the sun, I think of how powerful the sun is, and I think that's one of my most favorite things about the sun is that there's an old story. It's an Aesop fable, where the sun and the wind are competing as to who is the strongest, and they try to prove that by a man and his cloak. It's a really fun story. I recommend reading it. But the sun ends up winning and is more powerful than the wind because he made the man take his cloak off. But anyways, I recommend looking it up. It's called the Wind and the Sun, or the Sun and the Wind, and it's an Aesop fable, so that's a really good one. But so the sun is a very powerful, it's our powerful thing. It's our life-giving source in our star. It just makes me think of this power, and it makes me think of superheroes. And so for our mindfulness moment, we are going to do a quick breathing exercise, but first we have to stand up. So if you can't see me in this little corner, just try to listen along, and I think you can kind of still see me, but I'm going to move back a little bit so you can see me. So can you see me? So all right, so we're going to get started with the Superman. So the Superman, we want to have our hips or our feet about hip distance apart. We're going to put our hands, we're going to clench our fists. We're going to put our hands up to the sky like a touchdown kind of, but clench your wrists. And just take like 3 to 5 breaths here. So like your Superman flying through the sky. So one more big breath. All right, now shake it out. Shake it out, shake it out. So this one is one of my favorites, and I feel like I find myself standing like this a lot. So this is called the Wonder Woman, and she is awesome. So we are going to stand tall with our hands on our hips. We'll keep our feet about the same width apart. Put our shoulders back, our hands on our hips, and we're just going to, again, take these big breaths. All right, I'm feeling powerful. That's also, I feel like that's a power pose. So sometimes those poses, like I'm feeling a lot more ready. Sometimes these breathing exercises and these poses are a really great way to just kind of get our brains back on track. I know when I'm working, sometimes I just need a little break, and you just need to breathe. And so when you're working on schoolwork right now, I know it seems like a lot because you're at home, and that's much different than what we're used to, but take a break for a minute. Just stand up and take 5 minutes and do the Superman and the Wonder Woman and do those breathing exercises, because it's a really great way to refocus your energy and your brain on what you want to work on. So I highly recommend keeping up these mindfulness moments. Let's talk about our vocabulary. So the two words that I picked out that most relate to our lesson today are solar and personification. So we're doing our solar oven project in a little bit, and that's really fun. I can see mine out there right now heating up. And then we're going to talk about personification. So our read aloud has to do with personification, but let's start with solar. So solar is an adjective. It's solar, solar. 2 syllables, meaning parts of the word. And so looking at the parts of the word, I look and I see sol. And if you speak Spanish, you know Spanish for sun is sol. So that kind of gives it away. So this is an adjective meaning relating to or of the sun. And personification is when you give an animal or an object qualities or abilities that only a human can have. The next slide will have some examples, but if you look up, personification, that's a big word. Let's clap this one out. Personification. Personification. That is 6 syllables. That is a long, long word, but if you look, you see if I split the word up, I see person in there. So it kind of can help if I can't remember the exact meaning, I see person, and personification is giving qualities, human qualities to an animal or an object like the sun. So let's go over some personification examples. So the stars winked at me. So stars don't have eyes and they don't actually wink, but we can imagine a star winking because they kind of twinkle in the sky. Or the book read itself to me. Ooh, this is one of my favorite things to say, because sometimes you read a book and it's like you're not even really realizing that you're reading because you're just so into the story, and it just kind of reads itself to you. Those cookies are calling my name. Although that does happen often, I don't actually hear cookies saying, Anya, Anya, eat me, but maybe in your head, right? But the cookies, they look so good, and and they smell good, so they're calling your name. You want to eat them, but the cookies aren't actually saying like, "Come eat me." So yeah, so these are just some fun examples I found. You could come up with some really fun personification examples. Comment below a personification example. That would be really fun. So yeah, go ahead and think about what you would want to add, what some fun personification examples might be. Okay, so for our read aloud today, we are going to read The Sun Played Hide and Seek, a personification story. And it's about a young girl. She has to give a presentation about personification, and she's petrified. So that makes me think of the alliteration that I talked about last Clubcast video. Alliteration is when multiple words in a sentence or a few sentences all start with the same sound and letter. So I see presentation, personification, and petrified, and so that kind of makes me think of alliteration. But all right, so let's see how she handles her personification presentation. There's something I've been dreading since the second week of school, when Mrs. Truman gave us each a task, assigning us a topic that we'd research on our own and then take turns presenting to the class. Amber D got similes and Angelo got puns, while I've been asked to give a presentation on something that gives human traits to stuff that isn't people. My teacher calls it personification. That's got to be intimidating because, like we talked about, we can see it with the 6 syllables, personification. So, I would be intimidated too if I pulled that word out of the hat that I had to give the presentation on. She looks nervous, so. Okay, it compares what something does to things that people do, like angry storms are marching through the South. It's supposed to make your writing more descriptive and more fun, but this concept won't be easy to convey. And just now, Mrs. Truman took a moment to remind me that tomorrow is my presentation day. I'd rather any topic than the one I've been assigned. Metaphors, they'd be a piece of cake. Superlatives, I'd give the most extraordinary talk. Idioms, I'd rock for goodness sake. How can I explain this so my classmates understand? I need some time to stop and think, I sighed. After school, I climbed a hill and spied a wooden bridge. which led me to a park called Riverside. There it seemed my worries packed their bags and walked away as I watched the sunlight tiptoe across the spring. So that is a really great use of personification that she's using right here. She could have simply just said, there, I wasn't worried anymore. But that doesn't make it as great. So she says, there it seemed my worries packed their bags and walked away. So her worries packed a little suitcase and walked away. That's giving the personification and the human characteristics to something like worries. So yes, and all of these. The daffodils, they waltzed in place and kept a steady time, then leaned in close to hear the rapids sing. So they leaned in close to hear. Interesting. A twisted oak tree beckoned me and offered up a sigh. When first I heaved myself up on its limb, a calming breeze was whispering a wishy little tune, as if it were a lullaby or a hymn. Across from me, a stone wall dressed in ivy stood in place. So a wall that's dressed, that's personification. In a crooked crack there bloomed a single posy. The sun and clouds played hide and seek against the light blue sky. The leaves met up for ring around the rosy. The park had been so welcoming, I nearly had forgotten about the talk I'm giving to my class. Across the way, a riding mower coughed, then started up and hummed a distant bark across a distant bank of grass. Sleep and rest abandoned me the night before my speech. My mattress tossed and flipped me like a dime. 1 a.m., 3 a.m., 5 a.m., 7:15 a.m. The sun awakened early, and I dressed and left for school. The buzz wheezed to a stop, and in I climbed. It's presentation time at school. I'm dry-mouthed and I'm shaky. As I croak one single word, my heart is pounding. Personification is the only thing I say before I hear the fire bell is sounding. Could I be simply dreaming this? It seems to be for real. As my classmates rise and form a single line, I join them as we exit to the blacktop parking lot and our spot out by the bus's only sign. The sunshine's warmth invites me to calm myself and breathe. When I see the park, I say to Mrs. Truman, how about a field trip so I can show the class the way some things can be described as human? So she's back in the park. That's great. Not a minute later, as we're ushered by the bridge to the park where waves are lapping at the shore. Kayla says the birch tree here has shed its coat of white, and my classmates all around me add some more. That bench is calling out my name. The water fountain hiccuped. Hic! A beard of moss is growing on this tree. A smile creeps across my face as Mrs. Truman beams. The park has saved the day and rescued me. I'm so happy for her. She got to give her presentation in the park and got to give a tree a beard. That's personification. The water fountain hiccuped, giving human characteristics to objects or animals. And then here's some more examples. And if you can come up with more, definitely comment. That would be fun. You can email me one. Or something that would be fun. There are so many personification examples throughout this whole story. What you could do is you could go through and count all of the personification sentences and examples and make it a game. That would be fun too. Project time. We are going to use the sun's energy to heat up our tasty treat with our simple solar oven. All you need is some household items, pizza box or shoebox, that's what I used. We can learn about absorption, insulation, and the sun's energy by doing this really fun project. Here are some of the materials we're going to need. So we're going to go through our procedure now. And throughout here I have a bunch of videos, so we're going to go over our materials again because I have a quick video.
Here are some of the supplies that we are going to need to make our solar oven. We'll get started. We'll need some plastic wrap, some aluminum foil, tape, box cutter, scissors. Make sure you ask your parents' permission to use these. They're very sharp. And then here is our box. So I'm just going to use a shoe box. You can use really any box you want. I'm going to use a wooden spoon to prop it open when we do some cooking. The thing about the box is you want to make sure it's easier if it has kind of a, if it's sealed back here and attached to the box because it's easier to prop it up, but really you can get creative. You can just tape that on. And then I have my black construction pieces of paper, and those will just tape right along the inside. So I already cut them out to fit the sides of your box. So you'll want some black paper because black absorbs the heat. And then for the cooking part, I have my tortilla and I have my cheese, and that is what I'm going to cook in my solar oven. So let's get cooking.
Those are all the materials. Step 2 in our procedure is I know we all have different learning styles, so I'm gonna read through our procedure and then have some videos, so it kind of gets it a little interactive more than just me talking this whole time. But step 2, ask a question and make a hypothesis. So hypothesis is a prediction or an educated guess. What do you think is gonna happen? So all part of the scientific method. And if you haven't already, definitely check out Mr. Sam's video on snow mold because his video goes over in a little bit more detail how to make a hypothesis and like the steps of the scientific method. And it's great. So I definitely think you should check that out if you haven't already. So my driving question, or what I decided to, you can kind of choose whatever you want, but what I want to test, so it's kind of what you want to test during the project. What I would like to test is, does black construction paper or aluminum foil better reflect heat and light into a solar oven? And then I'm going to answer it kind of with my hypothesis. I think black construction paper will better reflect heat and light into a solar oven because the color black absorbs and retains heat, keeping it inside the oven. So I made mine primarily lined with, it has aluminum foil, but also primarily lined with black construction paper because I think, like it says here, I think that the color black will retain the heat in the box. We will begin testing our hypothesis with the following procedures on the next couple of pages. So step 3, use a box knife or sharp scissors to cut a flap in the lid of the pizza box. Cut along 3 sides, leaving about an inch between the sides of the flap and the edges of the lid. Fold this flap out so that it stands up when the box lid is closed. Line and glue or tape. I taped aluminum foil to the inside of your shoebox, shiny side out, making sure no cardboard is exposed. If desired, add a second layer of foil. Line the inside of the lid and flap with foil similarly, but make sure that the flap is lined separately so it can still be lifted up in this mechanism here. Line the sides of the box, like I said in my material video, with black construction paper. And then, really important, use clear plastic wrap to create an airtight window for sunlight to enter the box. Really make sure that that's nice and tight so that it keeps the heat in. I think that's something, when we talk about my project and my conclusion later, I think that that's something I could have been a little bit better about. So here is how I made my solar oven, the first part before we cooked. I measured 1 inch around using a tape measure. You can use a ruler. I cut very sharp box knife, so please be careful. Aluminum foil time. Get all that aluminum foil in there. Shiny side out is best. And maybe skip the black construction paper if that's what you want your driving question to be. Plastic wrap, really tighten it. Get it nice and tight. I could have been better, like I said, about this part. And there it is. So that's my final product of my solar oven. That was really fun to make, and I hope you have just as much fun making it. So next, after we make all of that, it's time to add our food of choice in the box. And like I said, I've decided to do some tortilla and cheese. So like I said, we're gonna take it outside to a sunny spot, adjust the flaps until the most sunlight possible is reflecting off the aluminum foil and onto the plastic covered window, because that's how it all starts warming up and heating up. So these are called collection boxes or collector boxes, ovens like these, because the heat from the sun is trapped inside your box and it starts getting very hot. So as it sits out in the sun, your oven eventually heats up to melt cheese. You can cook a hot dog, you can do s'mores, you can do really any food that you want in your solar oven. You can warm up some soup. It's pretty much up to you. So here's what it looked like after I placed my box outside of my solar oven outside. I propped it up. I didn't use one spoon, it didn't actually fit. I propped it up using this marker. And so check on your food until the desired outcome. So here's a little outline of me checking on my food. This is after 1.5 hours.
So it feels warm. It's been in for about an hour or like hour and a half. So let's see how it's doing in here. Okay, it feels hot. Let's see if the cheese, the cheese is kind of melted. It feels warm. Maybe I should leave it in for just a little bit longer.
So here is me checking on it after 3 hours.
Let's check this again. Feels warm. If you're grabbing a plate or something out of your solar oven, you should use an oven mitt, but I'm just gonna, all right, it feels hot. And the cheese is kind of melted. I waited about an hour and a half more. So yeah, all right.
Before we get into our conclusion, I really wanted to do a fun game of Simon Says. All right, Simon Says, touch your head. Simon Says, start patting your head. Stop patting your head. If you stop patting your head, you're out. Simon Says, put one arm in the air. Simon Says, put the other arm in the air. Put them down. If you put your arms down, you're out. Simon Says, hold up 2 fingers. Simon Says, hold up 4 fingers. Hold up 8. If you held up 8, you're out. A fun, quick little brain break action is always what we need before we get into our conclusion. So we followed all of our procedures. We did all of that. Now, after we've done our test, so my tortilla did end up getting pretty melty. I have it right here, actually. I already ate some. But so it did end up getting pretty melty, which is cool. And it was good. Ready to go. So that was really fun to make something using a weird box. But to check my hypothesis, my question was, does black construction paper or aluminum foil better reflect heat and light into a solar oven? And then my final hypothesis was, I think black construction paper will better reflect heat and light into a solar oven because the color black absorbs and retain heat, keeping it inside the oven. So now I'm going to check that in my conclusion. I believe that aluminum foil covered solar ovens might be better. Aluminum foil would cook food to a better degree, retaining its heat and moisture. Black paper covered solar ovens took a really long time to cook the food evenly throughout. And if I made a solar oven again, I think what I would do was add more insulation and potentially I cut those 1 inch, that was 1 inch in, and I think that I would have done maybe 3.5 inch flaps and then made a smaller flap so that the heat maybe would have stayed in there a little bit better, and just more insulation and adding that just so that heat stays. the heat would stay. And also, like I've mentioned a few times, really tightening my plastic wrap. So that'd be a better way. There are so many ways that you can make a solar oven. Just look it all up on the internet. Just kind of, I mean, we have some time at home right now, and so I mean, just kind of play around with it if you're really into it, and just see. Let me know like what works better. If aluminum foil worked better, or if adding more insulation. Like I've read a procedure where you add newspaper to the side. So it just all really depends on what you want to do. And then the heat of the sun's rays reflecting off the aluminum foil is what melts it. And so it can get really hot. So just be careful and have fun doing it. And I just want to say thank you so much for watching my solar oven video. I had so much fun doing it, and I hope you also have fun trying out a solar oven, making some s'mores, maybe warming up some hot dogs. That would be great. Hope you have a wonderful Earth Day. I really want you to celebrate and get out. This week the weather's going to be super nice, so really get out there and enjoy. And if you did watch, please be sure to comment your first and your last name below. And if you made a solar oven or video of you doing a solar oven, you can comment, or you can email me right here, Anya@tetonliteracy.org. Just keep tuning in to Club Chaos, making sure you're commenting. That helps Teton Literacy tremendously with our grants and our funding. And also just to know that you are all watching and interacting with us still makes being home a lot easier. So, all right, I will see you for my next Club Chaos video. Have fun making your solar ovens. Thank you so much for watching.